Darren is in Sunderland for us this morning to give us the picture there. Darren, good morning to you.
Hello, Eamon. Good morning. Crucial day tomorrow, isn't it? As you say, for all the major political parties, millions of people across England, Scotland and Wales will vote in local elections that could decide the future prospects of Keir Starmer, Boris Johnson, Ed Davey and others. It's always difficult, though, isn't it, in local elections to work out how much local issues matter in particular areas. Of course, councils run things like the roads, potholes are big issues, bin collections, how much council tax you pay matters too. But then there are those big national issues that feed in as well. Lots of people focused, unsurprisingly, on the cost of living crisis, a frustration among many that the government is not doing enough to try and help mitigate rising inflation. At the same time, the taxes are going up, and that is hopefully, or what the Labour Party would hopefully like to emphasise during this campaign. Keir Starmer saying that there should be a windfall tax, for example, on energy companies. He also is attacking that national insurance tax rise as the wrong tax at the wrong time. As for the government, though, they are trying to focus on some of those local issues. They believe that actually, when you look around the country, lots of local council areas are not terribly run well by Labour, whether that's in places like Croydon or in Nottingham that have effectively gone bankrupt in recent years. But in the end, it is likely the Conservative Party are going to lose seats. Now, why is that? Well, the party is not as popular as it once was. Labour should be winning seats in a mid-term aim, and that's the whole point of opposition. If Keir Starmer is not winning seats this time round, many people will question whether he's got the ability to win the next general election. I think the big concern for the Conservative Party is just how bad tomorrow could get. Is it going to be a net loss of 100 councillors, 200 councillors, 300, 500? There were predictions at the weekend suggesting it could be the largest slump since the mid-90s when Tony Blair was about to sweep to power, though many feel that's a bit of expectation management. So all in all, it's going to be a fascinating day of politics here in Sunderland. There is concern amongst the Labour Party that's held this city for decades that the Conservatives could actually make some gains and mean that Labour lose overall control. This and many other little kind of local election disputes around the country will fill that national narrative, who on Friday will decide, as I say, whether Keir Starmer's had a good day or whether Boris Johnson has had a day that's not been that bad. And I think that's probably the greatest hope the Prime Minister can have.
I think it's interesting you're standing outside the football stadium there in Sunderland, because that is integral for the community. When you think about it, Darren, as a melting pot, whatever your political persuasion is, these people are united in supporting the Black Cats there behind you. How reflective do you think, I mean, you were touching upon it there, but how reflective of a general election will these polls be, will these elections be, and should we read a national trend into them?
You know what, Amy, you're entirely right about the football. There's a big game, of course, here on Friday night. Sunderland playing Sheffield Wednesday. I spoke to some people yesterday. They're not terribly happy or hopeful about what may well happen. And I suspect more people in this city are going to be concerned about what happens here than they are about the results on Friday. But you're right. I think you can read something into it. Of course, these are local election results that are swayed massively by local issues. What people are voting for in Wandsworth in South London, which the Conservatives are frantically trying to hold, compared to what they're voting for up here, is worlds away and literally hundreds and hundreds of miles away. But that overall vote share, I think, if the Conservative Party do really badly, clearly people will start to question whether the Prime Minister really does need to do more on the cost of living crisis, whether Partygate has had an impact on support for Boris Johnson. Can Boris Johnson win the next election if lots of his supporters won't turn out at this election? But also questions for Keir Starmer too. If he doesn't do particularly well, people were saying, well, if he can't do well now, when support for the Conservative Party is low, how does he expect to win the next election, which is already an uphill struggle? So, yes, it is really difficult during local elections, particularly mid-term, because the government normally get a bit of a beating to judge where we're going to be in a couple of years' time and how much that feeds into a national narrative. But it will reflect on our politics and it will influence MPs at Westminster about what they think of their political leaders.
And just finally, I mean, we talk about, mid-term elections, American term, but, at this stage in the electoral cycle, it not being very favourable for the government, and you expect that. But I wonder if the current sort of mood and the climate amongst the general public is going to be actually producing quite a low turnout tomorrow, whether or not people are feeling quite apathetic about politicians and politics in general, with all the sleaze and everything else that's been going on.
Yeah, I think that might well be the real winner tomorrow. It must be said, unfortunately, but you're right, given the number of scandals we've had at Westminster, given that turnout in local elections tends to be quite low anyway, and given, I think, where the Conservative Party is, I think turnout is probably going to be quite low. Many of people who would normally vote Conservative in general elections or typically in local elections may decide to stay away tomorrow because of the frustration over lots of things like the cost of living crisis or Partygate or whatever else. But also there is a sense again with Labour that, whatever one thinks about Keir Starmer's leadership, that he's not necessarily winning over boundless supporters. The enthusiasm is not seething, if you like, for the Labour leader, and that may well mean that in the end not that many people turn out. I mean, the weather's not very nice today, the weather matters as well, but I suspect, the main narrative on Friday will be Labour claiming victory, the Conservatives saying, well, it wasn't that bad, but overall, in the end, actually just not an awful lot of people turning out to the polls. But the polls are open tomorrow morning from 7 a.m. right through to 10, depending where you are, of course, and not everyone's going to vote tomorrow. And there are elections separately in Northern Ireland, in some ways more important elections to the Northern Irish Assembly as well, taking place tomorrow, that will decide all sorts of things, not least of all potentially the UK's future relationship with the EU. But all in all, I think the main narrative on Friday may be not many people bothered to turn out to vote at all.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.